this is Jen from Winrose Fiber Studio, and welcome to the tutorial for the Tucson Chill Top, Part 1. If you're a subscriber, you've seen me posting about this pattern on the community page. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I am presenting this tutorial in such a way that everyone will be customizing it, so it's hard for me to tell you exactly how much yarn you need, but it'll be 5 to 6 skeins likely. I've chosen a medium weight yarn. This is Big Twist Party in the colorway Canyon. I'm also using a 5mm crochet hook, yarn needle. I have stitch markers, a pair of scissors, and it's also very helpful to have a ruler or a tape measure on hand. Okay, so the basic qualities of this shirt are that it's more of a relaxed fit. It's not super form-fitting. It'll be made in such a way that you'll have a little more room at the sides. And then you can choose what length you want it. I'm probably going to go for like a mid-hip length for myself. Then it has a basic crew neck, so you want to pick a top with a crew neck that fits nicely on you. And then the other two big elements are dolman sleeves, which means that the opening of the sleeve is going to be a little bit longer than on, say, something like a classic t-shirt. And the shoulder is a drop shoulder, so there won't be a seam at the shoulder, and it's going to drop over the shoulder, and then it poofs out just a little bit at the sleeves. So the sleeves don't, it's not a big poof, but the sleeves have a little bit of a poof to them. So the goal is for each of us to be able to make our own top with these basic elements, but to your own specifications, to the length that you want, to the width that you want. I think the sleeve opening sizes will be good for everyone. And then I know everyone's a little different with how big they'd like their neck opening to be. So you can make little adjustments so that your crew neck is comfortable. So if the style of this top is even the littlest bit appealing to you and you'd like to try to make it along with me, I would love to, I'd love to have you join me. I'd love to hear how it goes for you. This is the first time I'll be sharing a tutorial in such a way that hopefully everyone will be able to customize it to the length and the width that suits them and, you know, makes them happy. So that's our plan. It's time to raid our closets. I chose this pink top because I really like the length, so I'm going to go with the top that is 27 inches long. And then I grabbed this yellow one because this one fits me much more true to size. The shoulder distance is very true to size. And I picked one more, this black and white baseball style top, because the crew neck on this one is super comfortable. So I'll be using these 3 tops to help me customize my Tucson Chill top. This project begins with a foundation double crochet. If this is a stitch that you're unfamiliar with, I just made a tutorial that's all about double crochet. I'm going to link it in the description below along with the timestamp, so you can go directly to a tutorial for foundation double crochet. I'm working my first couple stitches nice and slow here, so if you're a visual learner, hopefully you'll be able to pick it up just by watching me get started. The beautiful thing about working with a foundation double crochet is you're doing your beginning chain and your first row of double crochets all at once, but that's not actually the real reason I've chosen it here. The reason I've chosen to start with a row of foundation double crochets is because it gives you a beginning row that is very even in tension and stretchiness to the last row. Sometimes when you work with a beginning chain and then you double crochet into that beginning chain, that first row, the tension can be a little tighter and a little shorter even than your last row. So this is in the interest of giving us an even tension throughout our entire piece. So how long should we make this foundation double crochet? We're actually going to take our desired length and subtract 2 inches of it and then double it. So for instance, I want a top that is 27 inches long. So I subtracted 2 inches, and that leaves me with a 25-inch foundation double crochet. But we're actually going to be working the front and back of this top at the same time, so I needed to double that. So I've done a foundation double crochet that is 50 inches long. That's 25 times 2. That gives me 50. And it's very important to place a stitch marker between the front and back of your foundation double crochet. Using my project as an example, I have a total of 150 stitches, so I have placed my stitch marker between stitch number 75 and 76. So I have 75 stitches in the front and 75 stitches in the back. I am a very big believer in checking my work, so I'm going to take the time to count my stitches and make sure I have the same number on one side of the stitch marker as I have on the other side of the stitch marker. Of course, I'm not going to make you watch me count all of these stitches. So here I have the length of the front and then my stitch marker and the length of the back. Note that the stitch marker is not placed in a stitch, but between two stitches. Now we get to dive into our project. Go ahead and chain 3 and turn. We'll be working into the back loops only. So you see me chain 3, turn, and now I'm going to double crochet into the back loops only until I am 1 stitch shy of the center stitch marker. The fabric we're making is a ribbed fabric, and we do this by working into the back loops only of each row. It creates lovely vertical lines and gives the top a little bit more stretch. Everything about this top is Tucson Chill, is relaxed, is easygoing. So as you start working your way across in the back loops, you'll see that little ridge that appears from leaving those front loops unworked, and that's exactly what you want. Here I am with 1 stitch to go before the stitch marker, and into this stitch I'm going to work a double crochet increase. You simply do this by working 2 double crochets into that same stitch. And now I'm working a double crochet increase in the stitch on the other side of the stitch marker. So the stitches before and after our center stitch marker are a double crochet increase. And then once I'm done, I'm going to take out the stitch marker and move it forward to the next row. Just to talk you through this, our foundation double crochet was row 1, and whenever you're on an odd numbered row, the right side of your work will be facing you. So row 1 is the right side of your work. Rows 2 through 8 will be worked with an increase before and after the stitch marker, and then carrying the stitch marker forward. So rows 2 through 8 are increase rows in which we'll be recovering those 2 inches we subtracted at the very beginning of the pattern. As you work through the pattern, please remember that we're working in the back loop only. At the end of each row, you will chain 3 and turn. Every once in a while, it's a good idea to count your stitches and make sure you have the same number of stitches on the front as you do on the back. We don't want to let that get away from us if you might be a little bit newer to crochet. We want our front and our back sides to be even. Now with the first 8 rows complete, it's time to make a decision about the width of our Tucson Chill top. So you can see I'm lining it up to the shoulder seam of my more fitted yellow top. And if I line it up to that edge seam, that's going to give me a top that's just a little more relaxed. I could pull it back and have it be as oversized as the pink top below it, or I could line it up to the side seam and have it be more fitted. So this is entirely up to you. If you like to wear your clothes more fitted, if you want something a little baggier or a little more relaxed. What we're looking for is the distance from the shoulder seam to the beginning of the neck opening. Because my yellow top has a wider neckline, I'm really looking at the edge of that pink top below it, so I have about 4 more inches to go, and my first 8 rows are right around 4 inches, so I'm going to go ahead and double mine and work another 8 rows, and that will have me ending on row number 16. And the one parameter that I'm going to give you is that you end on an even numbered row. So whether you're doing another 8 rows like me and you're ending on row 16, or maybe your top is going to be a little more narrow and you're ending on row 12 or 14, just please end on an even numbered row as you continue to work to get to that width that you want for your top. These rows, no matter how many you choose to do, will be worked just straight double crochet across. I've just gotten to the halfway point, and you can see that I'm working 1 double crochet before the stitch marker and 1 after, so no more increasing. And now I'm going to go ahead and move that stitch marker up. I'm still going to be carrying it forward each row, so please continue to carry your stitch marker forward each row. But now just to enjoy some straightforward double crochet back and forth until you've achieved your desired width. And through the magic of video, here we are. The right side of your top is now complete, both front and back. I've sort of counted off those 8 rows where we have the increasing and lined that up with my shoulder. I'm going to switch to my striped top because that has the crew neck that I really want to copy or to use as a template. And so now, because we finished on an even row, you're going to be working up the front row, the next row, you'll be headed up towards that neckline. And we need to make a decision about how many stitches to leave unworked. At this point, we're going to be separating the front from the back. So I've got my ruler up there, and I kind of want to see how far the drop is before my crew neck really starts to curve. And mine is right around 2 inches. And when I hold the ruler up to my piece, 2 inches works out to be about 7 stitches. So I'm going to leave 7 stitches unworked. I have already started crocheting, and so I need to pull out a couple of these stitches here so that I have 7 stitches remaining before I reach that center stitch marker. So for my top, for the size neck opening that I want, I'm going with about a 2-inch drop from the shoulder seam. This is probably going to be a little bit different for everyone, so base it off of the crew neck that you're using as a template. Now, after you've decided how many stitches to leave unworked, I'm going to have you add 3 more to that. So you can see that I've pulled out 3 more stitches. And now we're going to start our neck shaping. We'll be working a 3 double crochet decrease over these next 3 stitches. To do so, you're going to yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and then you'll do that 2 more times, and then you'll yarn over and pull it through all 4 loops on your hook. That is the end of our first neck shaping row. We're going to chain 3 and turn, and we'll begin the next row with a double crochet 3 together. So we're going to work another decrease just like we just did. Please remember that we're always working only in the back loops. That is continued throughout this entire pattern unless otherwise specified. So don't forget to continue working in your back loops. And now you just get to continue double crocheting across this row all the way till you reach the end. Then chain 3, turn, and double crochet your way back up. Here you can see that I've just completed the 3rd row of the front, and I'm holding it up to my crew neck. I am pretty happy with the shape that I have, but I have decided to pull out the last 2 stitches of this 3rd row and work a double crochet 2 together because I want to continue that gentle curve just for 1 more row. This is completely up to you if you would like to do the same thing. It will make for a slightly deeper crew neck. Once finished with that double crochet 2 together, I'm just going to work a few more stitches and then hold this back up so we can have another look at the neck shaping. I am feeling really happy with the curve of my crew neck. So now the next step is for us to figure out how many more rows we need to make across the front before we need to start increasing. So we've just decreased over the first 3 rows at the front to shape the neckline, and we'll be mirroring that on the other side. But first we'll be doing a few rows of just back and forth double crochet. So a moment ago I measured the distance of those first 3 rows of neck shaping, and that came to about 1.5 inches. And now I've just measured 1.5 inches from the other side of the neck opening, so I need to crochet back and forth just over 4 inches to get to the point where I want to start increasing again. I'm coming back. I've just added 8 rows to the front of my top, and I want to have a look and see if I want to start increasing at this point. Just as we decreased over 3 rows, we'll be increasing over 3 rows, and we want our last row of increase to be an odd numbered row. So looking at the top and taking some more measurements, I really love my rulers. You can tell I love my rulers, but just kind of laying them out on a grid so I can get a sense of how much space my rows are taking up. I've just decided that I don't want the opening of my neck to be too narrow, so I'm going to add 2 more rows before I start my neck shaping. So I've gone down and back up again. You'll notice my back up row is an odd row, so I'm actually going to start my increase on this row. Our odd rows are all of the recessed rows, the even rows are the raised rows, and the goal is to have a nice raised row on either side of the neck opening. So with this most recent row, I'm actually going to start my increasing. Everyone's top will be a little bit different, but referencing mine as an example, with the front neck shaping, the first 3 rows were decreased rows, and then I ended up crocheting 9 more rows of straight double crochet, and now it's time to mirror those first 3 rows of our neck shaping and curve our fabric back upwards. So I'm on an odd numbered row, and I'm going to finish this row off with a double crochet increase. That means I'm placing 2 double crochets in the last stitch of this row, and then I chain 3 and turn. Now I need to do a 3 double crochet increase in the very first stitch of this row. You can see we're working into the back loops, and to do a 3 double crochet increase, I'm simply working 3 double crochets all into that same first stitch. Once done, I'm going to double crochet the rest of the way across, chain 3, turn, and then I'm going to double crochet my way back up. You can see that I just ran out of yarn, so it's time for me to add a new skein. I'm bringing the new skein in with that last yarn over pull through 2. And now I can continue working across my row. I'm coming to the end of the 3rd row of neck shaping as we're increasing. And you can see now I'm working into the last 3 stitches. When I come to that last stitch, I'll work a 3 double crochet increase. This simply means to place 3 double crochets into the back loop of that last stitch. We are now all done with this front section. Go ahead and cut your yarn, leaving 6 to 8 inches for sewing. and I'm going to feed this through the loop and pull. Let's take a moment and admire the work we've done so far. I've got the front facing us, and you can see I'm pointing to where we started our decreasing and working our way around the neck, and then we have our straight rows, and then in the last 3 rows we increase and curve back up. And that might seem like a strange place to leave it, but we will be rejoining the back to the front with a raised row coming from the back of the top. Now it's time to catch the back side up to the front side, so count how many rows you worked to work the neck shaping. You can see that I'm counting my rows here. I happen to have 15 rows working across the front of my top, so I'm going to need to crochet 15 rows across the back of the top, and then we'll be joining the back to the front. Let's start by looking at how we join our yarn to the back of our top. We'll be joining our yarn with a standing double crochet in the stitch just to the left of our stitch marker. Our stitch marker, everything to the right is the front, everything to the left is the back. So we're going to go into that back loop of the stitch just to the left, and to work a standing double crochet, yarn over, kind of hold that yarn over in place, then insert your hook and work a double crochet as you normally would. It just feels a little awkward because the yarn over wants to slip, but otherwise it's a seamless way to join and to carry on with our double crochet. Here you see I'm coming back up. I'm at the top of row 2 of the back, and I'm just working my last stitch into that standing double crochet. Let's kind of have a peek at our work. I'm just popping in a stitch marker so my work doesn't pull out, but you can see how seamless this looks. See how nice this fabric is looking. And you can see how we're working the back across to meet the front. Jumping ahead, I've just finished my 15th row, so now the back side of my top is the exact same width as the front side of my top. The next row will go up and over and join to the front of our top. So I'm just going back, rejoining my yarn, chain 3 turn, and I'm going to crochet up the back of our work until we reach that neckline, and then I'll show you what to do from there. Okay, so I have crocheted across the back of the row, and now I need to extend this row and join it to the front. We'll be doing this by using foundation double crochets, and the number of stitches you need is equal to the number of stitches you left unworked in this last row before the neck shaping. I left 7 stitches unworked before the middle, and so I need to make 7 foundation double crochets. To join foundation double crochets to an existing row, we're going to work back into that same stitch we just worked into. So yarn over, insert your hook into the last stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, and now we start working our foundation double crochets. So I'm holding on to the working yarn, yarn over and pull up a loop, that's the base chain, and then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, that's the double crochet. And now I'm going to work 6 more of those. Let's have a look. I've got my 7 foundation double crochets, and we can double check. So there's our last stitch, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now let's look at how this is all going to come together. The next stitch of this row will be worked into the last stitch of the row from the front of our work. Remember, we ended that row with a 3 double crochet increase. We're just going to yarn over and go into the back loop of that last stitch. Work that double crochet. So we have joined the back to the front, but you'll see that the base of the stitches don't have anything holding them together. And we're going to use that tail that we left behind when we finished off the front to sew the base of the stitches together. You can see how there's nothing holding them together as of yet, but we are absolutely going to fix that. So I'm just going to do a few more double crochets, and then we can weave in that tail end and secure our work together. You could also save this for later. It's okay if you want to weave in this tail end later. I just thought I'd show you how this comes together before we move on. If you sew yours together now like I'm doing, be a little bit careful not to block the stitches because we'll be using those as we shape the neck. So truly it's okay not to do this right now. You can see that as I weave in the yarn, I'm going up a little bit higher and not right on the edge because I'm really avoiding blocking those stitches. Be gentle as you pull the tail end through. Don't cinch your work, just have it be joined together very naturally. You don't want to change the tension of that join. I'll just finish up this weave and then we can carry on. With all of that behind us, you have just navigated probably the most challenging part of this pattern. So well done, give yourself a pat on the back. Now we get to just reverse what we did for the first side. So remember, our first 8 rows were increase rows. So count off your first 8 rows and then remind yourself how many rows you have between that 8th row and your neck shaping. Those are rows of straight double crochet, and that is the exact same number of rows you need to do now of just double crocheting back and forth. This includes the row we're working on right now. Take a moment to replace your stitch marker. We still want to pay attention to what is our center. I've already finished that first row and now I'm coming back and I just want to give you a refresher on what you do when you meet your stitch marker. We're not increasing, so we're just going to work our double crochets before and after the stitch marker and then just move that stitch marker up a row. So if you had 8 rows of straight double crochet before the neck shaping, you're going to have 8 rows now. If you had 6, you'll have 6, and so on. I hope it was relaxing to be able to just sit back and do straight double crochet for a few rows. Now we're going to finish off the body of the top by decreasing down the other side. So we're working on the drop shoulder portion for the other half. Remember, this is going to be 8 rows For the next 7 of these 8 rows, you'll be working a double crochet decrease before and after the stitch marker. So you're going to stop 2 stitches shy of the stitch marker, and to work your double crochet decrease, you're going to yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, then yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on your hook. Now you have a decrease before and after your stitch marker. Keep moving that stitch marker forward. You're going to do 7 rows of decreases, just like this. I've just finished my 7 decrease rows. So there's only 1 row left. I've already started it right here. This last row, you're just working a double crochet across. So you won't be working a double crochet 2 together. I'm so much more in the habit of calling those double crochet decrease, so I apologize that sometimes I say double crochet decrease and sometimes I say double crochet 2 together. But for this last row, there's none of that. You're just going to double crochet straight across, 1 stitch before and after the stitch marker, and then you'll move that stitch marker forward. That is helping us keep track of the very middle of our work. What is the front and what is the back? And now there's nothing left to do but finish crocheting down this row and cross the finish line, or at least the finish line for the body of our top. But what's so awesome is that the bulk of the work is done. You've worked the front and the back all at the same time. There's nothing left but the sleeves and a little finishing work. So go ahead and cut that working yarn, pull it through the loop, and now we can have a look at our work. If you try this on and the neck seems really big, don't worry about it, because that's going to be taken care of when we crochet our trim around the neck. It will be a little loose right now, but look at how pretty this is looking. I love the way the colors are working out on this yarn that I kind of chose because it was on sale. So I'm, kind of happily surprised by this yarn. I will definitely have it linked below. And then just having a look at it, laying with my more fitted shirt over the top, it's anywhere from 3 to 3.5 inches wider on either side than my fitted shirt. So I think this is going to be a really nice relaxed fit. So we'll be stopping here for today. I hope you're enjoying the project. If so, please consider hitting like and subscribing. I will be back next Tuesday with part 2. And welcome to the Tucson Chill Top tutorial part 2. I'll link part 1 in the description below. In part 1, we did the entire body of our top, front and back. Today, we'll be making the sleeves and doing some light finishing work. Let's go ahead and dive in. You can see I have my top laying out. The front of the right side is facing me. The neckline is to the right. And I'm measuring out 14 inches. This is going to be the size of our sleeve opening. Remember, these are dolman sleeves, so the opening is a little bit longer. And now I'm sliding my piece down so I can count how many stitches that is from the bottom of my top. And I discovered that my stitch marker is placed at stitch number 31. And at first I decide I want to move it down 1, and then you'll see me move it back up, because I like the idea of an even number of unworked stitches at the bottom or at the side of my top. And then I'm going to count up for the other side, the back side, and place the stitch marker through both layers of fabric. So for my top to have 14 inches from the shoulder, I have 30 unworked stitches at the bottom. This will be different for everyone. It'll depend on the yarn you're using, the hook size you're using, your personal gauge, how long you wanted your top to be. So just remember that your piece is customized to your specifications and your numbers won't be the same as mine. So after putting a stitch marker in both sides, I'm taking one of them out and just using one stitch marker to hold the two sides together. So now I have the length of my sleeve opening marked, and I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. So I'm just going to count up the same number of stitches and place my stitch marker on this side of the top, holding the two sides together. Be careful when you're counting the stitches on the side with your foundation double crochets, this one right here, because your foundation double crochets will have a couple of unworked chains on the end. So just make sure you're counting that first stitch and not those beginning chains. Okay, so now that we have both sleeve openings marked, I'm going to flip my piece back around and we're going to start off working on what will be your left sleeve if you're wearing the top. The stitch marker at the shoulder has been placed between two stitches. I would like you to go ahead and move that stitch marker so it is placed in the stitch towards the front of the piece. So rather between two stitches, just go ahead and move it to the stitch that's more towards the front. We're going to use this as our center point. And now from that point, we're going to skip 3 stitches and place a stitch marker. And then we're going to skip 3 more stitches and place a stitch marker. There will be 5 stitch markers on the front, then that middle stitch marker, and then we're going to do the same thing for the back side. These markers are placed where we'll be making our increases that will create the gentle poof for our puff sleeves. So I have 5 stitch markers and then this one at the very top center, and now I'm going to turn the piece over and do the same thing for the back side. I skip 3 stitches and then place a stitch marker. So there'll be a total of 11 stitch markers, the one at the top of the shoulder, 5 in front and 5 in back, and each will have 3 stitches between them. I now have all of my stitch markers in place and this first sleeve is all set up. I'm going to go ahead and set up the other side. First of all, we need to find the top center of this sleeve. You can count, but you can also look at where the increases are on row 2, because between those 2 increases is the center, and if you follow that down between the 2 stitches below those increases, the stitches where those increases were placed is the center, and then we're going to air towards the front. We're actually going to place the stitch marker in the stitch towards the front, so it's no longer between stitches, it's in a stitch. Here you can see me moving that stitch marker from being between stitches to the stitch that's towards the front of the top. So now it's time to place my stitch markers. I just wanted to show you how you can use scraps of yarn as stitch markers. Not everyone has lots of stitch markers laying around. And so I'm going to skip 3 stitches and then I'm going to use my crochet hook just to pull the folded scrap of yarn through, and then I'm going to grab the ends and pull that through. If you've ever done a latch hook project, this motion will feel very familiar. but this is just a really quick way to use a scrap piece of yarn as a stitch marker. I'm going to speed through this side. I've got my center one at the shoulder, and now I'm putting 5 stitch markers on the front and on the back. Each are separated by 3 stitches. Now both sleeves are all set up and ready to go. I'm going to flip my piece back around and start with the left sleeve. So notice I have the right side facing me. I'm going to open up that opening, and I'm actually going to start working with the wrong side facing. I'm going to be working counterclockwise around, starting at the back of the sleeve with the wrong side facing. I hope that's not confusing. It's the inside of your sleeve that's facing you as you work this first row. And we're going to begin by joining with a standing double crochet, and then we're going to double crochet 2 together. Please remember that we're still working in the back loops only. Now just double crochet up until you reach your first stitch marker. Here we are at the first stitch marker. You can go ahead and take the stitch marker out. We're going to be working a double crochet increase into the back loop of the stitch. That just means to place 2 double crochets in this stitch, and then we're going to work double crochets across to the next stitch marker. So these 3 stitches, just get a regular back loop only double crochet. And now at this stitch marker, we're going to do a 3 double crochet increase. This means placing 3 double crochets into this stitch. We're going to alternate double crochet increase, 3 double crochet increase as we work across the stitch markers. So this one was a 3 double crochet increase. And now on this stitch marker, you're going to place a double crochet increase. That means 2 double crochets. And then we work up to the next stitch marker. And this one will get 3 double crochets. This is a 3 double crochet increase. And now we'll crochet up to the next. You can see I've sped up the film because I want to show you this whole row. But I know time is precious, so I've just decided to work a little faster here. This one gets a double crochet increase, so that's 2 double crochets. And now 3 more stitches, and we're at the top of the shoulder. So this top one gets a 3 double crochet increase, 3 double crochets in this stitch. And now we're going to be working over the last 5 stitch markers. It'll be 2, 3, 2, 3, 2. So this one gets a double crochet increase. That's 2 double crochets. And now we're going to do 3 double crochets to the next stitch marker. This one gets a 3 double crochet increase, so that's 3 double crochets. Three stitch markers to go. This stitch marker gets a double crochet increase, which means 2 double crochets into the same stitch. I know I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but we're almost there. The second to last stitch marker gets 3 double crochet increase, so 3 double crochets in the same stitch, and then we're cruising right along to the last stitch marker, and this gets a double crochet increase, so 2 double crochets all in the back loops. We want to keep our gentle ribbing going, and now we can just double crochet across until we are 3 stitches from the end. We're going to do double crochet 2 together, or double crochet decrease over these next 2 stitches, and then double crochet in the last stitch, which is also where our stitch marker is located. I'm placing a stitch marker in my loop so I don't lose my work while we take a moment and look at the beginning of our sleeve. So you can see that it's bowing out just a little bit everywhere where we worked an increase. If you wanted less of a poof, you could work just 2 double crochets in each stitch marker. If you wanted more of a poof, you could do a 3 double crochet increase in each stitch marker. Now is the time to decide, because we're about to carry on, and our next 4 rows are going to be the same pattern. So here I am back at that last stitch. I'm going to chain 3, turn. Remember, back loops only. We're going to work a double crochet into the first stitch, and then a double crochet 2 together over the next 2 stitches. This is a double crochet decrease, and now you're just going to double crochet all around until you come to the last 3 stitches, and then you'll double crochet 2 together and then work a double crochet in the last stitch, chain 3, turn. So for the next 4 rows, our stitch pattern is the same. Before I go off and do this for myself, I just want to show you the end of this row. You can see I'm decreasing, or double crochet 2 together, and then working 1 double crochet into the last stitch, and then I can chain 3 and turn, and I work 3 more rows just like this. So I will come back at the end of row 5. I just finished my 5th row, and I just love taking a moment to see how our sleeve is shaping up before moving on. The next 3 rows are worked with the same pattern. You'll be working 2 double crochets and then a double crochet 2 together. In other words, double crochet, decrease, double crochet, decrease, all the way around. I just wanted to show you the stitch pattern a couple of times before we get to the end of row 6. This pattern is not going to work out evenly across all 3 of these rows. So you can see as I'm coming to the end of my row, my next stitch should be a double crochet 2 together, but I only have 1 stitch left. Not to worry, I'm just going to double crochet into that last stitch, chain 3 and turn. But then for this next row, I'm going to go ahead and work a double crochet 2 together over the first 2 stitches. And then I'm going to go back to my pattern of double crochet, double crochet, double crochet 2 together. And the reason I'm doing it like this is so that our double crochet 2 togethers are not stacked right up on top of each other. I want to kind of space them out. So when you get to the end of your rows or the beginning of your next row, just use your judgment so that you're spacing out your double crochet decreases evenly across these 3 rows. You can also see how our decreases at the beginning and ending of each row has created this gentle angle underneath our arm, and that's intentional so there's not a lot of excess fabric that feels bulky under our arms. We have one more row left before the end of our sleeve, so now it's time to take a couple of measurements so that you can customize your sleeve opening to your arm. You can see that my sleeve folded in half is 9 inches, so I probably have around 18 inches around on this sleeve. I'm hoping for a sleeve opening that's maybe around 10.5 to 11 inches, so I need to almost reduce mine by half. Now this is going to vary for all of us. For my last row, I'm going to decrease every other stitch. If you need an opening that's a little wider, you might decrease every 3rd stitch. If you really need to shrink your opening, you might decrease all the way around. Truthfully, you may need to work this row a couple of times until you get your opening just the right size for your arm. Please make a note of any modifications you make as you're working this first sleeve, because you'll need to repeat them in exactly the same way as you're working your second sleeve. I'm going to jump ahead to the end of row 9. You can see how much that brought the opening together. If I measure it now, it's right around 6, but I know my last 2 rows of single crochet are going to bring that in even a little bit more, so I'm pretty happy with my distance. And if you're not happy with yours, you might need to experiment just a little bit until you get it just right. Remember, your fabric will have some stretch. To finish off our sleeve, we're going to work 2 rows of single crochet around. The wrong side was facing, so I'm going to chain 1 and turn, and for this row the right side is facing. For the first time in this entire pattern, you're going to work through both loops of the stitches, not the back loop only, but through both loops. I'm being careful not to have my tension be too tight because I really don't want to draw the opening of the sleeve together anymore. Here I am at the end, and you can see if I pull on it just a little bit, I can easily get up to 5.5 inches, which I'm feeling really good about. And now I'm going to work my last row of single crochet around, but I want to continue to have the right side facing. So rather than chain 1 and turn, I'm going to work a slip stitch into the first single crochet of that row to join the last stitch to the first stitch, and then chain 1, single crochet into that same stitch, and each stitch around. I've just come to the end of this second row of the sleeve trim, and I'm going to join with a slip stitch to the first single crochet, and I'm not going to finish off at this point. I'm going to place a stitch marker in my loop just so my work doesn't pull out, and let's have a look. Now's the time to double check, make sure you're happy with your opening. Also be sure to take notes on any changes you did to the pattern so that you can repeat them on the second sleeve. because now we're going to sew our side seam. Once this side seam is in, it'll be very hard to make changes to the sleeve. So make them now, because here we go. We're going to finish off this side of our top. To prepare for the side seam, I'm feeding my skein through my sleeve opening and turning my work inside out. Once you get everything all lined up, you're ready to begin. We're going to be working from the opening of our sleeve, under the arm, and all the way down the side. I really like to take my time with this, so let's work through these stitches under the sleeve together. The first thing I'm doing is chaining one, and then my very first single crochet is going into the first row of the sleeve trim, that row of single crochet, but now it's time to work through the end rows of the double crochet. I have found that it's a little crowded to place 2 single crochets in each end row, so I do 2 and then 1. The way I place my stitches is I kind of go through, if you look at your stitches, there's the top of the stitch and then the post. So I go through the top of the stitch on each side, and I just take my time and find the top of the stitch and work my single crochet, and now I'm going to go through the post. So I'm just going underneath the post of that double crochet. For the next end row, I'm just going to work 1 stitch. So for one side it's going to be a chain 3 turn, and then the other side it's going to be the post. For our finished work to look nice, we really need to pay attention to where our ribbing is. And I really take the time to look on the inside, see where those ridges are from the ribbing, and make sure that I am lining those up. So here I'm going through the top of the stitch again, and then the post. It's so easy to have your work shift or to get a little confused about which row you're in. You'll see me at one point pull my work out and go back because I'm just making doubly sure that I'm placing all of my stitches in the right place. I think we're there. So here I am, I'm lining up those ridges, and it's making me a little doubtful of the last stitch I made. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out a stitch and go back, and I'm just making doubly sure. I believe those stitches were in the right place anyway, but I am making doubly sure that I'm placing all of my stitches exactly where I want them to be. So this is just, the reason why I filmed this whole thing is because I really want you to see me taking my time, making sure I'm really happy with my stitch placement. It'll be easy once we get to the side because we'll just be working in those even rows of single crochet, but working in end rows is a little more challenging. So just a few more rows to go. Still taking my time to line up and work my stitches carefully. These are going through the post, and now just 1 in the next end row. I'm also going to keep track of how many stitches it takes me to go from the cuff to the bottom stitch marker, so I can recreate that same number of stitches when I'm working the other sleeve. I want these sleeves to feel exactly the same. So it only takes me around 16 stitches or so to get from the cuff to the underarm stitch marker. And I'm working these stitches nice and loose. I don't want to cinch the work at all. I'm going to go ahead and place my stitch marker and check my work. If I flip it back right side out, I'm checking to make sure all of the ribbing lines up, and I'm really happy with how that's looking, how those rows are connected. And I want to make sure I'm happy with that before I continue on and finish my side seam. So I'm feeling pretty good. I hope you are too. So I'm just going to go ahead and flip my work back around and get my hook ready. So my next stitch, I'm joining the front to the back right at that stitch marker at the bottom of the arm. And it's very satisfying to get to remove a stitch marker because it means we're nearing the end of our project. And now I'm just going to work these single crochets evenly across. We're working through both loops. And I'm just going to continue to be careful, make sure I'm lining up the front to the back, and I'm going to work my way down. Here we go, we've made it to the end of our side seam. I'm just trimming my yarn and pulling it through the loop. Let's flip our work right side out again. We can see our cute little puff sleeve right there. Let's have a look at our side seam. Look at how nice and neat that is. Very cool, very geometric. I am loving how the ribbing has come together. And now we just need to do this one more time. Are you ready to start the second sleeve? So for the second sleeve, the important thing to note is we are starting with the right side of our work facing and the back side. So the front of my top is facing the table and I'm starting with the back side, and I'm going to join with a standing double crochet. We're back to working into the back loops. So we're going to work this sleeve exactly the same way we worked our first sleeve. The main difference here is that we're starting with the right side facing and the back of the top. So you can head back to the timestamp 7 minutes and 58 seconds and follow the directions for the first sleeve until you reach those last 2 rows of single crochet. So here I am at those final 2 rows. On the last row of double crochet, the right side is facing you, so we're not going to be chaining 1 and turning. We're going to go ahead and join this row to the beginning with a slip stitch to the first stitch, then chain 1, and now we're going to single crochet around. At the end of this row of single crochet, we're going to slip stitch to the first stitch, chain 1, and then single crochet into that same stitch, and then you'll be finishing this last row of single crochet and working your side seam just as we did with the first sleeve. It almost feels wrong to be cruising on ahead this fast, but I'm assuming that you've got your sleeves done and everybody is ready to work the trim for their crew neck. So you can see I've got the right side of my top facing me, and I've got it turned so that I'm starting at the center of the back. So the center of the back with the right side, and I need to find the center point, so I'm just counting my rows until I reach the center. So it's this row right here, and I'm going to join with a single crochet. Just like we worked the end rows under the sleeves when we were joining those sides together, I'm not putting 2 stitches into every end row. I'm putting 2 single crochets into the end of one row and then 1 into the next. 2, 1, 2, 1. I find that if you put 2 single crochets into the end of each row, it's very crowded. So I'm just working with a nice relaxed tension. I'm working in the top of a stitch around the post and then into the end of the next row. Top of stitch, post of stitch, into the next row. And I'm doing this until I reach the side. And then I'm going to work single crochets down those stitches that we left unworked on the side. For me, that's 7 stitches. For you, that may very well be a different number. But it's just the side of your neckline. And then we're going to be getting to our increase rows. And I'm just going to carefully place my stitches, 2, then 1, 2, then 1, as I work my way across the front. I find that this gives our crew neck structure, helps it hold its shape, keeps it from being too stretched out, and it's just a very simple way to give it a clean, finished look. When you're working the increase and decrease rows, you might need to look a little more carefully for the perfect place to put your single crochets. I find that you want to go under more than one piece of yarn for it to feel nice and secure. You don't want to stretch out a single strand. See, here's our double crochet 3 together, and I'm making sure I go under at least 2 pieces of yarn there, and then the post. And now we're on to the next side, so now I can just work single crochets evenly up the next size. Our piece is getting really big to manage. So here we are. Don't worry about that back loop being pulled kind of loose by your decrease, because as you work the trim, it'll bring all of that together for you. And now I am back to the back. This is a stitch marker that was just left over from working the body, so I'm going to take that out, and now I'm going to work across the back until we meet that middle. I also have not woven in my loose ends yet, so that's a project still waiting for me. You can see I'm checking my work to see if I want to put 1 or 2 single crochets in this first end row. I was placing 1 in the chain 3 turn rows, and so this is going to get just 1 stitch, and then there'll be 2 stitches in the next end row, and that'll have everything work out nice and even when I get back to the center where I began. When you get back to the beginning, slip stitch to your first single crochet, chain 1, and then single crochet into that same stitch and into each stitch around. When you get to that last stitch of the second row, do not slip stitch to the first stitch. Instead, we're going to finish this project with an invisible finish off. Let me talk you through it. Cut your yarn, and then you're just going to pull that cut in through and thread that yarn into your yarn needle. We're going to join this last stitch to our first stitch. We're going to go under both loops of the first stitch, and then we're going to go between the front and back loops of the last stitch. And we're also going to catch, there's a little piece of yarn right behind that back loop. I'm also going to catch that as I pass my needle through, because that serves as a nice anchor. And then we're going to pull this yarn, but we're not going to pull it tight. We're only going to pull it until it makes a nice looking chain. And it just gives your work a seamless finished look. So if you've never done an invisible finish off before, that's how you do one. And now it's time to weave in all of our loose ends. Maybe we'll take a quick peek at our crew neck first. You can give those rows of single crochet a little tug just to even out the tension. I hope you're happy with the shaping of your crew neck. I'm going to disappear and weave in all of my loose ends and come back and look at our whole top. I really am happy with how this yarn made up. I'm really enjoying all the color variation. I love our little poof sleeves and our comfy crew neck. I have chosen on this top not to trim out the bottom hem. I like that scalloped look, and I like that it still maintains all of its stretchiness. My goal truly is for this top to be relaxed, comfy, and chill. Here's our finished Tucson Chill top, right in my backyard in Tucson, sitting in front of my Palo Verde tree. I hope you enjoyed this project. I really enjoyed bringing it to you. If so, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to my channel. It would mean so much to me. I share videos every Tuesday. I'm really looking forward to sharing more of my patterns with you. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.